Emily Carter had always known that her relationship with her father, Richard, was complicated. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened the night of her 18th birthday. What should have been a quiet celebration turned into a storm of accusations that shattered the last piece of her already fragile trust in family. The small town of Cedar Falls, Virginia, was the kind of place where gossip traveled faster than light. Richard Carter, a respected attorney and church deacon, had spent years building his reputation. And when his only daughter began questioning the hypocrisy in his actions, he began plotting to silence her. "You think you're better than this family?" Richard's voice had echoed through the kitchen, his face red with fury. "You think we don't know what you've been doing? The lies, the parties, the drugs?" Emily had stood there frozen, her hands trembling, trying to comprehend what was happening. I haven't done anything," she stammered. "Where is this coming from?" From the corner, Lisa, her stepmother, watched with a tight smirk, arms folded like she had been waiting for this moment. "You think people won't believe me?" Richard continued, towering over Emily. "I've already told the church board. Everyone knows you're pregnant. And they'll never trust a word from you again." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Pregnant? Drugs? None of it was true. Emily had spent the past year working at the local bookstore, saving up for college. She had no boyfriend, no record, nothing to hide, except her growing resentment of her father's cruelty and her stepmother's manipulative ways. Within an hour, her belongings were dumped into trash bags and left on the front porch. No goodbye. No remorse. Just the cold click of the deadbolt locking behind her. She wandered the streets of Cedar Falls that night, tears stinging her eyes, her world spinning. She had nowhere to go. Her few friends had already drifted away after her father's lies spread like wildfire. She tried calling her aunt in North Carolina, but no answer. With just $200 in her backpack and a cracked iPhone, she boarded a Greyhound bus to Chicago the next morning, not knowing where it would lead, only that she was never coming back. The bus ride was long, silent, and cold. Emily didn't cry. She didn't even sleep. She stared out the window, watching the trees blur into shadows, repeating one phrase to herself like a vow. "I will survive this. I will become someone. I will prove them wrong." She didn't know how yet. But she knew one thing: she would never let them bury the truth. Chicago was nothing like Cedar Falls. The city was alive, buzzing with energy at all hours, a chaotic symphony of car horns, voices, and the hum of trains rattling through the air. For Emily, it was overwhelming, and exactly what she needed. In a place this big, she could disappear. Her first nights in the city were spent in a rundown women's shelter on the south side. The mattress was thin, the blankets scratchy, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights made it nearly impossible to sleep. But it was safe, and that was more than she could have asked for. The other women were friendly enough, though they mostly kept to themselves, sharing only fragments of their lives through quiet, late-night conversations. It was here that Emily first began to see how resilient people could be, even in the face of unimaginable pain. By day, she roamed the streets, searching for work. The rejection was endless. Every cafe, shop, and diner seemed to turn her away. She didn't have experience, references, or even a stable address. But Emily didn't let it crush her. Every door that closed only made her more determined to find one that would open. After 2 weeks, she finally got her break, a tiny, family-run diner called Rosie's on the north side of the city. Rosie herself, a gruff woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a soft heart, didn't ask too many questions. "You work hard, you show up on time, and you keep my customers happy," she had said, handing Emily an apron. "That's all I care about." Emily threw herself into the job, working double shifts and staying late to scrub floors and clean tables. The regulars, construction workers, students, and tired nurses, began to recognize her, offering small smiles and kind words. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She saved every dollar she could, refusing to touch the small emergency fund she had brought from Cedar Falls. Evenings were spent at the library, where she devoured every book she could find on law, psychology, and self-improvement. Her goal was clear: she was going to college. She didn't know how, but she would find a way. Education, she believed, was her ticket out of this life. It was during one of these late-night library sessions that she met Maya Lewis. Maya was a psychologist volunteering her time to run free group therapy sessions for young women. At first, Emily was hesitant to join. She didn't think she needed therapy. But Maya's warmth and genuine care won her over. Soon, those weekly sessions became her lifeline. Maya helped Emily confront the trauma of her past. "You can't move forward if you're still carrying the weight of what they did to you," she said during one session. "You have to let it go, not for them, but for you." It wasn't easy. Reliving the night she was thrown out, the betrayal, the lies, it felt like ripping open old wounds. But slowly, Emily began to heal. She realized that the narrative her father had painted about her didn't define her. She wasn't the failure he wanted the world to see. She was strong, determined, and capable. By the time she turned 20, Emily had managed to enroll in community college, studying pre-law. Her professors quickly recognized her potential, and one of them, a retired attorney named David Brooks, took her under his wing. David introduced her to internships and scholarships, opening doors Emily never thought possible. Through sheer grit and determination, Emily graduated at the top of her class and secured a spot at Northwestern University's law school. The girl who had once been thrown away was now standing on the brink of a future brighter than she had ever imagined. But even as she built this new life, the shadow of her past loomed large. She avoided Cedar Falls, refused to follow news from the town, and never spoke her father's name. It was easier to pretend he didn't exist. Yet, deep down, she knew the truth. The day would come when she would have to face him, and the lies he had spread. Emily was 30 when the letter arrived. It came in a cream-colored envelope, elegant cursive inked in gold on the front, Miss Emily Carter. At first, she thought it was a mistake. No one had used that name for years. But when she flipped the envelope and saw the return address, Cedar Falls, her chest tightened. She hadn't heard from anyone back home in over a decade. She had no intention of going back. Yet here it was, a wedding invitation from Ashley Carter, her half-sister. A woman Emily barely remembered, but who was now marrying some local businessman and apparently wanted the whole family there. Emily stared at the invitation for days. It sat unopened on her kitchen table in her Chicago apartment, modern, warm, and full of books. 10 years ago, she had nothing. Now, she had built everything from the ground up. She was a respected legal consultant, with her own firm and a reputation for taking on cases most attorneys avoided. Her name carried weight, far more than her father's ever had. But Cedar Falls still haunted her. The memories weren't just painful, they were unfinished. Her father's lies had become community truth. To everyone back home, she was the disgraced daughter who vanished in shame. And Richard Carter? He was still hailed as a righteous man, a pillar of the town. For years she told herself it didn't matter. That the truth didn't need an audience. But now, holding that envelope, something inside her shifted. The invitation wasn't just a wedding notice, it was a door. One she had never planned to open, but now, maybe she needed to. "I'm thinking about going back," Emily told Maya one afternoon during coffee. Her mentor tilted her head. "After all this time?" Emily nodded. "I want them to see who I've become. I want him to see." Maya leaned forward. "Then do it for you, not for revenge." "I'm not going there to burn it all down," Emily replied. "But I'm done pretending I don't care." A week later, she booked a flight to Virginia. As the departure day approached, the anxiety grew. She didn't sleep much. Old nightmares returned, the shouting, the accusations, the sound of the door locking behind her. But there was no going back now. She packed carefully, a sharp navy suit, her credentials, and a leather-bound folder full of documents, court records, transcripts, testimonials. Proof. Not just of her innocence, but of her triumph. As her plane touched down near Cedar Falls, she gazed out the window at the town she had once escaped, so small now, almost delicate. A part of her longed to turn around. But the rest of her, the stronger, wiser part, knew it was time. The past was waiting. And Emily was finally ready to face it. The air in Cedar Falls was thick with the scent of spring, blooming dogwoods, freshly cut grass, and a nostalgia Emily wished she could ignore. The drive from the airport to the old Carter house was quiet, the road lined with familiar sights, the bakery with the red shutters, the church where Richard had preached about grace and truth, and the bookstore where she once worked part-time, now closed, the windows dusty and dark. Emily pulled up to the wedding venue, a refurbished barn on the outskirts of town. Dozens of cars were parked outside. Laughter and music spilled into the warm air. Her hands trembled slightly as she stepped out of the rental car, heels clicking against the gravel. She entered the barn with measured grace, eyes sweeping the crowd. They noticed her almost instantly. The chatter quieted. Some stared. Others whispered. "Is that Emily? Didn't she? Wasn't there something about drugs?" Emily's posture was straight, her gaze calm. She had prepared for this. Ashley, the bride, approached hesitantly. "Emily? I didn't think you'd come." Emily offered a polite smile. "You invited me." Ashley shifted uncomfortably in her dress. "Dad doesn't know you're here yet." Emily's eyes narrowed slightly. "He will." It didn't take long. Richard Carter appeared near the altar, dressed in a crisp gray suit, still exuding control and confidence. But when he saw her, he froze. For a moment, his mask slipped. "You shouldn't be here," he said under his breath, jaw tight. "On the contrary," Emily replied, reaching into her bag. She handed him the leather folder. "I thought you might want to see what the past 10 years have looked like for me." He flipped it open, his eyes scanning: law degree, bar certification, awards, newspaper articles, character testimonies from respected judges. At the bottom was a notarized statement from a family friend who had overheard Lisa, his wife, admitting to fabricating the rumors about Emily to get her out of the house. Richard's face drained of color. "I didn't come here to ruin the wedding," Emily said quietly, so only he could hear. "I came to reclaim my name. You spread lies. I brought the truth." Guests had started to gather around, sensing something unfolding. Emily stepped forward, raised her voice just enough to reach them. "For those of you who knew me, or thought you did, I want you to hear it from me. I was never pregnant. I never touched drugs. I was thrown out of my home for standing up to control and manipulation. But I didn't let it destroy me. I built a life. A damn good one." The room was silent. Even the music had stopped. She looked around, making eye contact with faces from her childhood. Some looked ashamed. Others shocked. A few even looked proud. And then she turned back to Richard. "I don't need anything from you. Not your apology. Not your approval. I just wanted you to know, your version of the story ends here." With that, Emily walked out into the sun, exhaling deeply, as if shedding a 10-year weight from her chest. She didn't look back. Because the girl who had been thrown away had returned. Not for revenge, but for closure. And she had won.